Hey Kara, how's it going today?
Fantastic, Kim. How are you?
Great. Okay, let's get started today. We have a great interview with Gina Cole. She is the title company representative that I use here with Navi Title. So let's watch her interview.
I am excited because it seems like, the title work is like this secret mystery what's going on in the background. So I'm excited for us to have this conversation. Yeah.
Hi, it's Kim with Hunt Real Estate. I wanted to introduce you to Gina Cole. Gina, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Gina Cole. I'm with Navi Title. I am a branch manager, escrow officer. I've been in the business about 20 years, so I've seen a lot. We've been through a lot. Um, we pretty much, we facilitate the transactions. There's usually a title company involved in most transactions, or should be. And so, yeah, that's kind of our role to start. Is we are accepted on the contract and become the company to help facilitate the closing. So
Great. So I have a couple questions for you.
okay,
Let's start with, what is the role of a title professional in a real estate transaction?
okay. Most people, when you ask, when we call them, they say title company. Well, what do you do?
Why do we need one of those?
Yeah, we know the realtor, we know the lender, but what's your job? We pretty much facilitate the whole transaction. There's usually escrow and title. Title is the policies that are going to be issued to the buyer through a transaction. Now, what we do is with those policies is we are making sure that everything on title is clean and clear, so that when you do buy that property, you're not going to have anything afterwards that could, come up that could prohibit you from selling the property or even owning the property. And then we do issue insurance. Title companies are insurance companies, so we do issue those policies to you. The easiest way I kind of explain title is, when you go to buy a car, when you go to buy a used car, you really don't know anything about it. You hope that they're telling you the truth. You hope that, what you pay for it is what it's worth. So a title company really is somebody who comes in and does all of the research on that. So they have done everything from A to Z research on a property, so that we can actually come to you and say, hey, listen, we know it's clean, we know it's clear, we know you're getting, what you've paid for based on the terms, and we're going to also issue you a policy on top of that to go ahead and ensure that everything was done correctly.
So what are the key steps involved in clearing a title?
Well, we do a title search. The title department will run a search. That search is not only on the property, but it's also on the owners of the property. Here in Arizona, judgments, IRS tax liens, HOA liens, anything that you've had in court that you could owe money to for restitution, anything like that, everything attaches to a property. Most people don't know that. So we not only have to make sure that title is clear as far as any liens from prior owners, but we also have to make sure that those people who you are buying it from do not have any active judgments, liens, anything outstanding, because once we close, they could actually have interest in that property. So the first step is doing a search to make sure that we cover anything and everything that could possibly come up to prohibit you from having clear title at a later date. Once that's done, then we usually will work with the sellers. Anything on the requirement title side is normally a seller requirement. The only thing that a buyer would need to look at is bankruptcy. If you've gone through bankruptcy, if you have still in the process of bankruptcy, that's something that could prohibit you from purchasing a property. Anything other than that is a seller. We pretty much work with the seller, go through each item, make sure that we can either get a payoff or they can supply something to us to clear the title. Once we do have clear title, then we're in a position to close and issue that policy to you, stating that you're going to be able to have this property and not have any issues later.
What's the time frame typically from beginning to end for an escrow and to get clear title?
It depends. I have people who need to close in 24 hours. My number one thing is, as long as title's clear, we can do it. Sometimes a search, Maricopa County, a search is quick, 24 hours. Sometimes the out of counties might take 24, 72 hours for title. If it's a mortgage on the property, if it's back taxes, something like that, we're in a position to close usually within a few days. Obviously, if you look at a title report and you look at the requirements section and you see 10, 15 requirements, you see a lot of items on there, just depending on what they are and how quickly we can obtain the information. It really is working with the seller. If the seller is willing to work with us, we can clear it quickly. If we have a seller who's maybe not being as responsive or didn't realize these things were going to come up on their title, sometimes we don't get in a position to close at all. So I think that really once the title report comes out, it's super important to look at that, because that's going to tell you also a time frame for us and for you on how quickly we can get things cleared up and get you in a position to buy.
Great. Is there a big difference between a single family home and a manufactured home?
Biggest difference, obviously, a manufactured home until it's affixed to the property. So if you go and you find a piece of land and a manufactured home, the manufactured home, if it's not affixed, it technically is still a DMV title. So it's technically not real estate. So if you do get into a position like that, you have to go through the DMV to have it affixed. Once it's affixed to the property, then I can say it's pretty much equivalent to a single family because you own the land and the improvements on top of it.
Okay, great. Do you have any other tips for home buyers with the escrow process and title and all of that?
I think it's important for the buyers to look at the companies. When the transaction's done, the only person that is still left on the hook is the buyer. So to know that you're at a company that's going to, that's reputable, but also that's been around and is going to be around. Because if there is an issue later on and your policy is, that company has been gone for 10 years, it's hard to try to find, that company or who acquired it. So I say pay attention at the beginning of who your title company is. Make sure that their underwriter is somebody that, has been around and you believe is going to be around. Second thing I think most important is when you do, go into contract, once you do get the title report, to pay attention to the exceptions. The exceptions in the title report is the only thing that we are not going to cover. That includes easements, CC&Rs, which pertain to the HOA, any other restrictions that the city has. Most people do not, and I'll tell a quick story because I think it's super important. I had a couple, and the couple was actually lenders. So they had been in the business. They were familiar with the, how the transaction would go. They bought a house. They had big dreams. They were going to redo the backyard, build a pool. We were sent them the CC&Rs. We had sent them the plot map, any easements, any restrictions. We closed. They were excited. They got a pool guy. They started to dig. They had already done the plans. They had pretty much had a nice amount of money already invested in this when they realized that there was an electric line that ran underneath the property where they wanted to build their pool. So now they're out money, but unfortunately that was something that was in the exceptions, and it was also something that was supplied to them. And if they would have just done a little bit more due diligence at the beginning, they probably would have caught that before they had gotten that far. So that's why I say exceptions, pay attention. They're very important. If you don't understand them, you have questions, call title. We're happy to explain or go over those documents with you.
Awesome. I think that covers everything then.
There we go.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't know. I don't think so right now. But really, I mean, if you're going through the process and you do have any questions, we work with everybody involved in the transaction. So really, if you want a one-stop shop, you can call and say, hey, what's this? Or I don't understand this part of the contract, or I don't understand title. Really, we can really answer any questions from front to back on the transaction. So utilize us to, help you to understand.
Awesome. I appreciate having you here today. Thanks, Gina.
Thank you for having me.
All right. If you guys have any questions for Gina or for myself, definitely let us know, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Very informative.
It was definitely. It's nice to know that there's somebody out there that's providing the protection and the additional insurances that you need to make sure that you're actually purchasing the property that you think you're purchasing.
Yes. I think a lot of people often overlook the exceptions in a title report. And that is so, so important. You want to focus on what they are not going to cover, so you have a better understanding. Anything to do with the HOA, that's kind of usually beyond their scope. That's usually an exception. Easements, that's another exception, because those can kind of change depending on ownership and what all is covered. So I really appreciated her breaking that down.
one of the things that she didn't actually address is, so, and as a agent, that when we open escrow, so we talk about that a lot in the real estate industry. When we open escrow, it's basically passing on the information to title so that they can begin the searches and so they can begin their process of clearing title. They also are the intermediary between all the agents and all parties for all the money. So they hold everything in their safe escrow account that is keeping their money protected. So their earnest money and their down payment and all of that gets processed with them as well. So they kind of gather all the information, all the funds, put it together, and disperse it as it needs to be at the end of the transaction.
So here in Georgia, we have a little bit more flexibility. So you can either have your earnest money held with one of the two real estate brokers involved in the transaction, or you can sometimes use the closing attorney. We don't use title as much for holding a fund. And if there's any down
Oh,
payment or anything additional, it's usually the closing attorney will hold it in their escrow account.
oh, good to know. There is a difference then. That's a
Yeah,
pretty big
yeah,
difference between how you guys do
yeah.
things there and how we do it here.
Yeah, but I
We don't
like
use
that. I mean, it
attorneys
makes
here in
sense.
our real estate transactions.
Oh, we do. We absolutely do.
Okay.
It's one attorney that represents both parties. And so I'm from New York, and up there we do stuff, it's adversarial. So everybody has their own attorney. And I'm sure that, adds a little
Okay.
extra
Sure. Yeah, of
expense to
course.
the transaction. But here it's just one closing attorney. So pretty good to know.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think I had one more really interesting thing I'm going through. I really love that she's been in the business for a really long time and understanding that it's important that someone's been in the business for a while and that the company is likely to still be around. Because if there is
Yeah.
an issue that you want to file a claim against your title insurance and they don't exist, who who do you call? So I think that was a valid, an interesting point that I think hopefully our viewers and listeners will take to heart. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay. Well, if anybody does, go ahead. You do the
No,
wrap
no,
up
you
because
do.
you're so much better at it than me. Go ahead.
If anyone has any other questions about title insurance, specifically in Arizona, feel free to reach out to Gina Cole. Her contact information will be listed in the notes below. So you can reach out to her directly, or if you have a question relating to title and you want to talk about real estate here in Georgia, you can reach out to me. And then, of course, in Arizona, Kim is more than happy to accept any of your questions.
Absolutely. Thanks.